It's always fun to do the infrastructure comparisons of the 90s to what we have now in the blockchain world. Because it seems to be like it's of course never going to be a one-to-one comparison, but there's always lessons to be learned, right? There's always patterns to pull out. But the big difference is that there was never any financial assets in the 90s. And so that's always the thing that kind of breaks down the metaphor, that breaks down the comparisons. One of the fuels for motivating all of this is, of course, like Bitcoin invented digital gold, digital money, ETH followed suit, like a lot of other, like we all kind of are playing around with assets. But I think before the paradigm of stablecoins, no one actually really saw the paradigm of stablecoins coming. But now we actually do understand that stablecoins have just an insanely large role to play in both the motivations, the financing of development, where we are going. There's $150 billion of stablecoins in this space. And so not only has it kind of defined maybe like the last like 4 to 5 years of development, like not holistically, but being a very large part of like blockchain development. Where do you think this goes as this infrastructure technically, like on an engineering and infra perspective, it will get more sophisticated, it will get better, it will improve. But on the financial asset side of things, for stable coins and just generally speaking, like where do you think this goes in the next 10 years? Yeah.
So what I've sort of, and you can ask anyone who's ever worked at Circle this question, is that my view has always been like the progress in basically building an internet financial system that is natively built from the ground up on the internet is like a 10, 20, 30-year project. It takes a really long time. And we set out a very specific vision about a protocol for dollars on the internet that could actually be like scalable, and you could transact at the speed of the internet, and you could do it for, nearly zero cost, and that would be programmable and all of that. That was like in the founding of the company nearly 11 years ago. And like, if I look at where we are today, with just say USDC and this new form of electronic money, like we're basically like at the 1.0 vision. Like we basically have reached like the 1.0 idea, and that's great. And it's already like a scaled network, and it has a lot of reach. But I think like if you talk about the next 10 years, I think the growth in this can be really dramatic. I think about the kind of market in a couple of ways. I think the first is there is a market for electronic cash or electronic money. And today, the market for electronic dollars is a $21 trillion market. There's $21 trillion of electronic dollars. In most of that is kind of bank risk money. It's sort of levered money inside of banks. And
What is that 21 trillion? So is that like money in my bank account, my Wells Fargo account, that would count towards that?
That's right. That's like M1 money supply.
Okay.
And so that aggregates up all of the kind of dollar liabilities that exist in the banking sector. And then you can also include on top of that usually the amount of dollars that are held in like money market funds, which is I think currently $5 or $6 trillion. So that's like the dollar electronic money market. And then globally, that's about $100 trillion, a little bit more than $100 trillion, because there's all these currencies and all these banks all around the world. So
wait, if you're in dollars, so you're not talking about
in dollar terms.
Yeah,
dollar terms.
In dollar terms, but you're talking about like the digital euro, for example.
Well, no, I'm just talking about like you've got 1.4 billion people in India, and they have rupee accounts, and all the corporations and households have rupee. And those are electronic. That's electronic money as well.
M1 rupees, basically.
Yeah, M1 rupees, right? So the aggregated aggregated electronic, the electronic money is over $100 trillion. So 150 billion stablecoins, very, very small, right? And I would argue that, and this comes back to something I said earlier, that in a world where basically you have money that inherits the physics of the internet, where you have basically the speed, the efficiency, and reach of the internet, and that is what blockchain networks are now providing. When you have money that inherits that speed, the best money is going to want to be, and people will want to be, the safest money. They're going to want it to be that kind of almost like government obligation money. And that is going to be the combination of like hyper utility, programmability, transparency, and safety, right? When you put all those together, it's going to be like the new predator form of money. And I believe that it will become the preferred form of money by households, by institutions, by financial players. It will become a preferred form of money because it has the highest utility and safety. And the internet and blockchain networks are going to be providing that ultra high utility. So our belief is that the opportunity at just the money stock, basically just the money stock, there's a huge opportunity to grow the scale of that. And it's sort of like, e-commerce originally was like 0% of retail sales. And, when Amazon was a monster company, like e-commerce was still only 10% of retail sales. It's still not even close to the majority of retail sales. Same thing with like streaming media. Like the vast majority of television consumed is still in broadcast, right? It's not on streaming platforms. So these migrations take a long time. So in 10 years, could 3% of the or 5% of the electronic money market be in stablecoins? That's conceivable over 10 years. Could it be 10% or 15% over 20 years? That follows a similar type of adoption arc, but even in that scale, it's significant. The other way to think about the market is basically the utility side of it, which is, you have the money stock, and then you have the utility of how you can use the money stock. And right now, that's expressed through markets like consumer payments, which is sort of all of these merchant acquiring fees and issuer fees and like this whole stack that imposes essentially $1 trillion tax on the global economy through all the fees that has. You have the utility of using that electronic money in capital markets. So the actual volume of activity that goes into capital markets, where literally there's, trillions and trillions of dollars of activity that happens there, and the payment utility of the pipes that do that. You have the entire international transaction market and cross-border transaction market, which is, households and firms, which is, this huge, slow, inexpensive, and fee-prone market. And every single one of these can be improved with blockchain infrastructure, on-chain FX markets, on-chain credit markets. You can move so much of the financial primitives into an on-chain world. And you can, I think, fundamentally have the utility of money, have that kind of 10x improvement that we've seen in the utility of communications, the utility of publishing, the utility of other mediums that the internet has produced. That utility can be just that like 10x better, and with a completely different unit economic model. And so the business model of extracting fees and tolls on moving value, I think that's going to be challenged. Just like charging for long distance telephone calls is nearly inconceivable, right? So there's the utility side, and then there's the money stock, and they both grow and feed on each other. And I think one of the really exciting things about stablecoins is they are kind of platforms and network utilities that exist as protocols that anyone can connect to and build on. Like USDC, any developer in the world, any person in the world can download a piece of software, connect to it, and then utilize it as a network. Any developer who wants to have a digital dollar integrated into their own application for settlement or storage or other things, they just have to write code. And so that hasn't existed in the financial system before, and that's really profound. And so I think similar to, when, let's just use as another example of a like discontinuous jump in innovation, which was the iPhone. For 10 years, people were trying to build smartphones. Like they were awful, like every one of them, like Nokia phones, NTT Docomo, Compaq, iPac, Palm Pilot, BlackBerry, like Windows Phone. I mean, it was like just a graveyard of people who were like mobile software, all this. And it was awful. And then finally, like there was a convergence of things, which was like a good UX, mobile broadband, 3G happened, like good UX, and like a really good development model. And then you had like an open platform for mobile that allowed just enormous amounts of entrepreneurial creativity. Like no one could have predicted that the travel and logistics, infrastructure would get completely reinvented by like a company like Uber. Like that was only made possible. Like that just became possible. And so I use that analogously to what's happening with DeFi. And what's happening with stablecoins and this programmable money model is we actually don't yet know all of the things that people are going to invent with programmable, composable money. Like we're seeing stuff every day and it's amazing, but it's actually, we're like right at the front end of that. And so when that UX layer kicks in and the scalability kicks in, and these are legal instruments that like governments stand behind and say, yes, this is a legal dollar or a legal euro, then I think you start to see totally unpredictable use cases that will emerge. And so it's like, I can't even predict like what are going to be the 5 killer apps of money in 5 years from now. I think it's actually too difficult to predict that.
To continue leveling up your crypto game, then you need to get on the Bankless newsletter. It's the world's most popular crypto email and is completely free. Just click below to sign up.